Hey, and here we are again for the Tattoo Sisterhood Revolution virtual interview series. I'm your host, Shelly Dax, and our guest speaker today is tattoo artist and illustrator Ruby Gore. But before we start our talk with Ruby, for those who are new on the interview series today, in this free event, I'm providing a safe space for people of diversity to discuss their experiences. We'll be talking about how their careers started, what kinds of obstacles they've faced, and how they've up-leveled their game. I, along with this fantastic panel of speakers, are here to support and encourage the tattoo hopefuls and beginners in their career, with a special emphasis on being a woman in this creative industry formerly dominated by men. Now let me tell you about Ruby. Ruby Gore is a Canadian tattoo artist, illustrator, and studio owner. Her private studio, Blackthorn Tattoo Atelier, based in Toronto, Ontario, is a cozy, safe, inclusive space that reflects the vintage, romantic, macabre elements of her artwork. She combines her love for flora and fauna with her dark aesthetic to create beautifully haunting, whimsical tattoos and illustrations. As a passionate vegan and trauma-informed tattoo artist, Ruby specializes in and offers free cover-ups and scar cover-ups to clients who are recovering from self-harm and victims of abuse, where she hopes that her trauma survivor project, Out of the Darkness, shows how tattoos can be an important part of mental health recovery. Ruby focuses her artwork on dark illustrative botanics. She is able to emphasize the mortality, both eternal and fleeting. Her glamorization of skulls, insects, flowers, animals, and herbs, primarily in black work, with an emphasis on clean lines, stippling, and the occasional burst of bold antique colors, are reminiscent of 1700s scientific illustrators. Wow, that all sounds so incredibly exciting, Ruby. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Shelly.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you today. I'm going to start out just by asking you kind of what I mostly ask everybody. How did you become interested in tattooing, and what kind of training did you receive?
I think that I've been interested in being a tattoo artist since I was, I don't know, knee-high to a grasshopper. It was something that I was always intrigued by. I think that I saw my first tattooed person when I was like, I don't know, 12, if I remember correctly. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. You can do art and have it on your body. I can't even understand that. I love it. So I don't know. I think that growing up in San Diego, there were a lot of really beautiful tattoo artists and studios there that
Mhm.
I really looked up to. And I don't know. I think that like meeting other tattoo artists in the industry at a young age, I was a little intimidated. And I moved to Oregon when I was in my mid 20s, and I don't know, there was something about the industry that felt more welcoming.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a lot more so than Southern California. I think actually because there were more female tattooers, honestly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
But
you
you
know, I
decided when you were younger, I mean, you already were very interested even when you were still living in Southern California.
I
And
was.
did you actually get tattooed in Southern California when you were
I
younger?
did. I did on my 18th birthday against my mother's wishes. She
Happens
was
a lot.
so upset when I got home. But honestly, I didn't really start getting too many tattoos until well, probably until about 5 years ago when I first started tattooing because I was really, really particular. I wanted beautiful work on my body and I didn't want to like rush that experience.
Mhm,
But I
mhm.
also knew that I was going to learn from these people that I looked up to by watching them tattoo me. So I was like very selective. But yeah, I got into the industry when I lived in Portland, actually. So
Yeah, my
yeah,
my neighborhood.
yeah, I know I miss Portland. Yeah. So yeah,
So,
I went into tattooing at like 30 after having a I don't know, a good 10 years in the graphic design industry.
mhm.
So I just needed a change and I was ready for it.
Wow. So having the graphic design background really helped you?
I can't express how much it helped me because I really think that there was so much of a focus on learning how to run a business, like a freelance business,
Hmm.
that I was able to marry with tattooing, in the very early stages of my career. And I think that that is one of the most important factors to my success, was viewing
Ooh,
tattooing as
yeah,
a
that's
business.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about that. But just going back though, you when you moved to Oregon, then you started looking around and trying to figure out how to become a tattooer when you were here, or what actually motivated you to like, okay, now's the time.
I had a friend. I had a friend who told me, she said, I know you've been saying that you're kind of unhappy in the design industry, and I know that you're more into like the fine art aspect. She said, have you thought about being a tattoo artist? And I said, yeah, oh my gosh, it's like been my life dream. I'd love to, but it just kind of seems like it's a bit rough around the edges. Like I'm a little intimidated. I'm like this quiet little Southern California girl, like who can't make it in a biker shop. Like,
Yeah.
and they said, it's different here. And there's actually like a different way to get into the industry. So you might want to consider like taking a look at that. And I said, "Oh, okay." I
Yeah,
was
people are
really,
quite surprised by the fact that there's a trade school, like private career school here.
yeah. And I know that like in a lot of other states, it's really frowned upon.
Hmm.
But it's also, I think, because don't they don't take it to the level that they do in Oregon.
Hmm.
When I tell people I went to trade school for almost a year for tattooing, they're like, oh, that must be a bit different than the 2-week thing that they have in Florida.
Right.
But just a bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
very different for sure. Well, cool. So so how was that experience for you?
Um, I think that it was better than what I've heard from some other people's experiences.
Yeah.
I think it's what you make of it.
Hmm.
and and I made a lot of out of it, to be honest with you. I think that there were definitely points where I could have felt that, I don't know, I could have gotten better guidance or more one-on-one. But because I felt like I was lacking that, I was really, really invested in seeking it out on my own. Like
Right.
I could be a bit pushy when I need
Really?
something. Yes, just a little bit, but it's done me well because I do it very respectfully.
Yes. Yes.
But I'll just like stick my nose in things and be like, hey, can I watch what you're doing?
Hmm.
Or I'll ask like, hey, what needle grouping are you using, or why are you doing that? And I'm kind of like the little kid that asks too many questions.
Right.
um,
Well, apparently it
you
helped
don't
you
get
a lot.
anywhere unless you ask a ton of questions. So
Yeah. No, that's really great. So do you have people like in the industry who helped you, supported you, or maybe you followed them or studied their work or,
I
I don't
have a
know,
lot of people that I
inspired you?
look up to.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think that my career really developed wholeheartedly in Philadelphia when I started at Philadelphia Tattoo Collective.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
the shop owner, Ben Harris, and it was a collective, so there were a couple of shop owners, but Ben Harris and Evan Lovett have like they really really invested so much time and energy, into the growth of my art and tattooing that I can't thank them enough.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
because they really were very genuine, and especially in a city where it's rough around the edges, it's very
Hmm.
competitive, and especially with other female tattoo artists, I felt like I wasn't quite as welcome. That they were very, what am I trying to say? They were not superficial. They were doing it for the love of
Cool.
the art,
Yeah.
and they really like kind of took me on almost in an apprentice kind of way,
Yeah.
because I think that that was one thing that I really lacked when I went into tattooing in Portland.
Hmm.
I think that like I mean, problems that aren't problems, I just jumped right into tattooing because I was able to market myself so well so quickly.
Yeah.
I think I took walk-ins for 2 or 3 weeks maybe before I was booking myself out.
Huh.
Um, that's
Goodness.
that's thanks to having like a marketing and design background,
Sure. Yeah.
that I applied like before I even graduated. But yeah, I think that having them kind of guide me in the right ways, like absolutely just did my career wonders.
Right. And so you were talking about women, or just more competitive, more of a competitive nature. And that's, one of the things that I'm passionate about kind of trying to improve, I guess,
Me
is,
too.
yeah, it's just not really going there, just really comparing yourself to who you used to be as an artist and growing, and
It's tough, yeah. I mean, and I just saw that one of the other speakers, and I like I'm so frustrated that I'm so detached from social media these days that I didn't realize this sooner, or that I'm so busy that I don't get to keep in touch with my friends. But I love that Annalie is one of the other speakers
oh,
because
nice.
she is my tattoo soul sister. I love her, and she's done so many wonderful things to show me that there are good people out there that are female tattoo artists in the industry that genuinely want to see other people do well. I
Yes.
absolutely love her so much. So I'm really excited to listen to her
Oh,
podcast.
cool. Yeah, I'm so glad. That's neat. And I've actually heard that from a couple of other people too, that,
uh,
that they're, oh, someone, so and so was on here and they're somebody
yeah,
I follow that I love. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that's so great. Because I mean, the whole idea of this was to just really open up a conversation about inclusivity and, learning and growing your career with support. I love that idea. It sounds like that's what you're all about too. And that's why I was attracted to talking to you.
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, because you were actually mentioning before about supporting other lady tattooers and how important that is. So,
Absolutely,
can you talk a
absolutely.
little bit about why you think that's so important? I mean, what is it about our industry that makes it so important?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of stigma in the industry about being a female tattoo artist and having to sell yourself short of your artwork. If,
Mm-hmm.
if that's more of an eloquent way to phrase it. And I think that like having to sell yourself in that manner, or at least like having that mindset going into the industry, I think that it like puts this wall up,
Yeah.
immediately for where there's like this other level of competition, where everyone's like, I don't know, trying to not just have the best artwork, but they're also trying to like be the prettiest and have the most attention or whatnot. And I think that like I'm trying really, really hard to kind of show that you can have a persona, but you really just are able to like channel your art in such a way that that people will come to you for that, and that you can be a strong female tattooer, and not, I mean, not that I'm knocking anybody that does that, because absolutely to each their own, but that you don't have to go that
That you
route,
don't have to. Yeah.
and you don't have to hate each other, like you don't have to dislike the fact that the other person next to you is doing a similar style to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're working really hard on your game, and it's going to improve because of the energy that you put forth into it. If you're focusing on what the other person is doing and how much better they are than you are, then it's going to detract away from what you're doing. And I've been noticing that a lot in the past 5 years that I've been tattooing.
Mm-hmm.
I just keep my head down and I work really hard. And sure, that upsets people too, but that's their opinion and they're entitled to have it. And I just don't really don't really be bothered by it.
Right, absolutely. You sort of have to
Yeah,
do that a little bit, I think. So,
absolutely.
what about the formerly closed sort of pirate old boys club culture that we've, had in this industry for a while? It's starting to change, which is so exciting. But
I think so. And you know what? I kind of really like that I feel like I get and I weasel my way in there one of them at a time. I really do. But it's because I've had this leverage of marketing. as a background. So like you go into like one of these old like boys only club pirate tattoo shops and they're like, what are you doing? Will you tell us? Will you share your secrets? And I'm like, of course I will. Like,
Oh, funny.
I'm happy to. And then there's a level of respect that I gain from them. It's just sometimes it's just like one person or one shop at a time. You'd be
Sure.
like, you don't have to be like that. It doesn't have to stay in the old ways, like let's break through and like
How
have
do we
some.
change it? How do you think we change it?
Yeah, I think it's one person at a time. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think that you've got to find somebody who's really got a hell of a message, and is really, really good at speaking that message and getting it out there. But for me, I have a lot of anxiety and it's really tough for me. So I don't know. I think that like a good example was I went to I don't know, pre-pandemic, I went to a picnic,
Uh-huh.
and I was hanging out with a bunch of like new people that I hadn't really met before. And I went in there and one of them said, "I'm so glad that you're so friendly because I was intimidated." And I said, "Oh my goodness, why?" And they're
Yeah.
like, "Well, you're talented and you got like all this stuff going on." And I was like, yeah, but you don't have to be intimidated. And I start telling them about like my trauma aware tattooing and about like how important it is for me to like connect with people and like, and just take the experience to a different level. And then I took a step back for a second, like in the middle of my conversation, and I realized I had like a campfire around me almost. There were like people who had like kind of started to sneak in to listen to what
Huh.
I was saying.
Oh, I love that.
I like blushed and I got really red. But I realized because I was being genuine and
Yeah.
I was like talking just one on one to a person about something that meant a lot to me, and that was, a good message, that, other people started to listen. So I think that it starts with being genuine. And then I think that like, what you're capable of spreading that message with. And me, it's like, one person at a time.
Sure.
And if other people are listening, it's even better.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So what do you think your biggest stumbling block on this career was, and how did you overcome that?
uh like like mild OCD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, manageable, mostly, but I think that like focusing too much on things, like, like what am I going to post on social media today? And like just spending too long thinking about it to the point where I've like wasted half a day and I ended up getting frustrated and not posting anything at all. So,
Got it.
but I'm reading a lot of really great articles lately, that are kind of helping me manage that,
Nice.
because I've recognized it as one of my downfalls.
Hmm.
I've accepted it.
And you told me once before that you were a strong reader, that you read a lot.
I love reading. I'm like a perpetual student. Like
Mhm.
I mean, I loved going to college. I loved school. And now that I'm out, I feel like I actually learn more now than I ever did before.
Mhm.
Like I wake up and I read, and I'd like to read more throughout the day, but I'm usually pretty busy with everything else, running
Mhm.
all of the business, and I have two assistants that are really, really lovely, one in Philadelphia and one here in Toronto, and that keeps me more than busy. But I find time to read in the bath before bed as well.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty hooked on Audible because I can listen to, audios in the car, in the shower, and while I'm cooking,
See,
and
and that's another thing that's my
yeah.
downfall is that I can't make a decision on what to listen to on Audible. So I just go, oh, I don't know, I give up. So I'm working
Oh,
on.
that's funny. I'll send you some recommendations.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you.
So let's talk about running your career as a business and how you're
Yeah,
able to do that so well.
awesome. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where do I start? Well, I think that like I said, I think that going to school for graphic design and marketing
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really helped, because it kind of got me into this mindset of running tattooing like a business,
Yeah,
because it is,
it is.
and
Yes.
it can be. I mean, and it was like that long before I opened my studio. So I think that like walking into it with that mindset changes everything, you know. But I think that educating myself with all of these extra elements, really like just kind of having my hands in every single cookie jar, at least a little bit. Even if I'm able to delegate that work out to somebody else, I have like a really great understanding of how it's supposed to work. So I think that that's been, really, really helpful to my business, is that like,
Mm.
I can take on an assistant who maybe, both of my assistants are in college. One's going to school for law and politics, and the other one's for psychology. So it's a really great mix.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, but both of them are very young, so they're teaching me things, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I'm not intimidated by that at all. I'm so grateful that I get to learn from these young whippersnappers who know a lot more about TikTok than I do.
Right. Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on that.
Oh my gosh, I know.
That's funny.
But yeah, like having this knowledge, and then like perpetually, being responsible for educating myself on everything that's new and upcoming, and like all of these different aspects of the business, even the boring um, parts,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
like like creating
Like
databases
books.
of
Yeah.
inventory. Which like for a Virgo like me, I love making spreadsheets, but like, I don't know, sometimes it gets a little tiring.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
But yeah, like really just knowing a little bit about everything. So like learning photography so that I can take really phenomenal photos of my tattoos.
Right.
Knowing how to market myself, so that I can get my work out there so that people can see my work.
Sure.
And then it all kind of goes into like, running a studio, like, okay, how do I do inventory, and like, and then eventually it'll be, hiring an artist when I decide that I want to expand when this pandemic is over.
Right. So for the audience, you are actually in your own studio, correct?
I am in my own private studio, yeah, and that was planned pre-pandemic, thank
Uh-huh.
goodness.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so,
good. You don't have to let
I
go of
I
anybody.
just found that I worked really well on my own, um, and that's a lot to do with the experience that I provide to each client.
I saw on your
Every
website that you only tattoo one person a day. That's a
Only
cool
one
idea.
person
Yeah.
a day. Yep, no matter how big or small it is, it's only one person a day.
And why did you decide to do that?
It started because I had a lot of anxiety.
Okay.
It comes with having like the mostly manageable like OCD, where everything has to be perfect.
Hmm.
So I spend a lot of time. I'm a little slow with how I like execute my day. Like it's kind of turned into this experience that people really enjoy, because I'm like, it's a relaxed environment.
Yes.
It's no stress. Like,
Love
I want
that.
you to plan to be there the whole day, but like we've got entertainment and we've got food and we've got like, we've got cozy as much as I can,
Uh-huh.
like comfortable music that's
So this is part
relaxing.
of creating a memorable experience for your clients.
Absolutely. And it all started because I was like, I'd have maybe like an appointment in the morning, an appointment in the evening. And the appointment in the morning, I was like doing all of this with, because it's always been a priority to have that experience. And then towards the end, I would maybe be like, oh my gosh, like I want to finish this. Or like this person came from, quite a ways away to be tattooed by me. And it's not fair that in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the next person.
Right. That makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, so I think I maybe only spent like a year, maybe a year and a half, where I was tattooing more than one person a day. And I said, I can't do this anymore. It's just like, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to me. I want them to be comfortable, and I want every single person to be as special to me, feel as special to me
Yeah.
as they are,
Yeah.
so
That
yeah,
is really interesting, and I love that take on it too.
thank
I don't
you.
think everyone can work in definitely in a crazy, frenetic, frenzied environment, or, a lot of times tattoo shops can be very loud and very
Yeah.
busy with people, and lots of clients bring friends in and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
this,
pre-pandemic, I actually didn't really allow guests either,
uh-huh.
because I felt like there were too many occasions when I was working in Philly, and I saw people, other tattoo artists have their client in, and they had a crew of people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They had their
Experienced
mother,
that
their
too.
brother, their sister.
You know
Everybody
what?
has an opinion, and I'm
Yes,
like,
yes,
"This is
yes.
your
That's
body." Yeah,
opinions.
I'm like, "This is your body. This is your art." And sure, maybe like first timers, like they want somebody to be there to like be supportive. And I do allow that on a case by case basis, but I'm also like, I want you to trust me. Like,
Yeah, it used to bug me a lot when a friend would come with someone, and my client, and then I would be maybe halfway through the tattoo or something, and the person would be like, "You're okay. It's almost done. It's almost done." And
oh
I'm
my
like
gosh,
in my mind going,
it
"It's
drives me
not
crazy.
almost done. There's still more hours. Don't be
Oh
saying
my
that."
gosh,
Yeah,
yeah. Or them like being bored and then like me
right.
being hyper aware that their guest is bored or them being like, "Oh, are we gonna be done soon?" And I was like, "You know what? Just please come on your own. And I promise you can have all the entertainment that you want. Plus, I will talk anybody's ear off for hours on end. Don't worry, I'll be your entertainer."
Good, good. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, I mean, one of the things I've talked about to the other speakers has been the idea of creating a client experience that's different than one that's, typically expected in the tattoo world. So, a lot of these tattooers have created more, beautiful spaces, more calming environments, like candles, have different kinds of music and all of that, which I think is, especially for women, is making it, and newcomers, is making it, more, I don't know, desirable, I guess, to even go get a tattoo, and
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
the
I actually
healing
have an
aspect
interior
too.
designer coming in this week who's
Hmm.
helping me, like, create more of, like, an ambiance and,
Oh,
like,
cool. Yeah.
I got the studio, like, up and running, and it is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm sure that anybody that came in, and anybody that has come in says it looks amazing, and it's like it looks finished, and to me, I'm like, "It's not even close." Like, to me, functioning, you
So
know?
wait, why did you call it the rabbit and the thorn? What does that mean?
Oh, the Rabbit and the Thorn is the studio that I was guest spotting at last year.
Oh, okay. What's
So
yours called?
mine is Blackthorn, which I
Oh,
actually
Blackthorn. That's right.
yeah. No, that's all right. I know it's really funny because I actually came up with the name long before I even tattooed at Rabbit and the Thorn.
Oh,
And I
funny.
was and I second guessed the name for a minute because I was like, gosh, I hope they don't think that like it's too similar to them. And I said, you know what? That's kind of like that's kind of one of those things that I notice about like I can apply to a lot of other aspects of my life. I go, oh, is this too similar to this? Or like, oh, maybe somebody else is already doing this. And I was like, you know what? It's my own experience, it's my own thing,
Mhm.
and and like you just kind of gotta say screw it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. Go with your heart. I mean, I totally believe in following your heart, even though it sounds so cliche. But
no, no,
life
I
is
love
too
cliche
short
Casey.
to, but yeah, it's just too short to
Yes,
be sidetracked by things
but
everyone
also
else wants you to do. Yeah.
yeah, but also like like the name holds a very special place in my heart because
Yeah.
my partner actually came up with it for me, and like he knows me better than anybody else, and and I've actually had other people try to name a studio for me, and I was like, and then when
Yeah.
he came up with the name, I just looked at him and I said, it's perfect.
That's
Like I
it.
knew immediately. I said, that's absolutely that's it, sold, that's it.
Yeah. How
I
long
bought the domain name immediately.
how, how long have you had the studio? Did you say right before the pandemic started, or?
So we actually came up here in early February. Yeah, it was like late January, early February uh to look at apartments. Because my partner's from Toronto.
Hmm.
I'm from the States, so immigration has been interesting.
I bet.
But yeah, so we decided like mid last year that Toronto was a better fit for me and for him. So we came up here early February, and we were looking at places. And it's funny because it was actually the last place that we looked at, and I didn't even want to look at it, and he'll never let me live this down. I was like, no, I'm tired. I don't want to look at it anymore. I really like this other one. He's like, no, I have a feeling about this one. We should go look at it. I said, all right, fine. So we come up here and we look at it, and I'm chatting with the owners of the building, and they said, oh, what do you do for a living? And I said, oh, I'm a tattoo artist. And they're like, oh, that's so funny because we have a space in the basement level of the building that is already zoned for tattooing.
Huh.
Would you like to take a look at it? And I said, you got to be kidding me. And he just looks at me and he mouths, I told you so.
Oh, nice. He had a feeling. He's
And
got
we
the
go look at
shining.
it. I know. You know what? I know. He's got an intuition that like can put anybody's to rest.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And we go down and we look at it, and I just look at it and I'm like, this is the perfect space. Like it's only going to be me. And so I don't need like a huge area.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to like live beyond my means or like work in a giant studio. It's going to take hours for
Right.
me to clean top to bottom. And so I said, done. That's it. It's
Very
perfect.
cool.
So
And
I
you
have
told me
about
when
a
we
30-second commute.
Oh, I love that.
It's
I have a
awesome.
5-minute commute, so I love that. You told
Yeah,
me before that you felt like Toronto was a very warm and welcoming city.
it really is. It
So that's
really
so
is.
nice.
It's the most inclusive city I think I've lived in. And I love Portland. And I think that
Uh-huh.
Portland is absolutely inclusive. Um, Especially like compared to many other cities that I've lived in. But there's something about Toronto that I feel like there's so much more inclusivity here. Like the Rabbit and the Thorn was the shop that I guest spotted at
Hmm.
like all last year when I was working up here. And they were the first studio that ever had on their form, what is your preferred gender pronoun?
Ah, yes.
And I
Yeah,
said, thank you. Oh my God, I love you guys for doing this. Like, this was
it's cool.
phenomenal. And like, all of my clients were grateful for that. Like,
Yeah,
even if it didn't apply to them as something that like they specifically like cared about for their experience, they were appreciative of
right.
that.
Yeah, we just added that to ours also recently because
I
of the
added it
same exact
immediately. I
thing.
said,
Yeah,
I
that's good.
love this and I can't believe I've been without it. Like, and I now get phenomenal feedback from people. And I was like, I don't know how I like had a form that didn't have, well, to be fair, like I used other forms at other studios,
Hmm.
when I was working there. But yeah, I think that there's a community here. There's a community feel in Canada that just I'm not gonna knock the States. But there's a reason why I'm here, and
Yeah.
I can't explain it. It's just like this warm, cozy, kind of safe feeling. Um, and I felt it immediately as soon as I came here, and
Oh,
I
that's so
love it here
nice.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that our pride almost put San Francisco's to shame.
ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
That's
really sad that we
great.
didn't get to have it this year.
That is so great. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note, then what have you noticed about minorities or, people of other genders and things trying to get into the industry? Have you got any experience or, seen anything or even some, I don't know, advice for people like that? Because sometimes, of course, what I've heard a lot is that they've ended up having to be self-taught, like to teach themselves because they couldn't get into an apprenticeship or anything along those
Yeah.
lines or find a mentor or something.
I think that I can't say a lot for Toronto just yet since I've really not been working here for very long, and the majority of my time working here now, I've been isolated.
Right.
So it's so tough because I'm trying to make friends with other people in the industry here, and it's all kind of online. So it's a new way for me because I'm used to being in a very large studio, with a lot of other artists.
Hmm.
But also, I don't know, I think that I have like a different experience altogether because I've really been in appointment only studios the majority of my career. But I think that it's a lot harder to get in, especially on the East Coast.
Hmm.
Like, Portland's a lot more welcoming. But I see so much more welcoming studios here, where they're like not focused on gender, they're not focused on race, they're just like, we just want to see your work and your personality.
Nice.
And I
Yeah.
love that because I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what it's supposed to be about.
That's what it should
So
be about everywhere.
yeah.
So, what kind of laws are there in Toronto regarding tattooing? Is there any?
They seem pretty relaxed compared to some of the other cities that I've lived and tattooed in.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really interesting because I feel like everybody that's well, okay, I can't say everybody that's in the industry, but I feel like a lot of the tattooers that I look up to in Toronto, and Montreal, I'm not really sure much about how Montreal works, but a lot of them are very highly regarded in the industry,
Oh, nice.
in Canada. But also they have a lot of like home studios here, which is like a new thing for me. Like I've never
Hmm.
heard that before.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of people ask me, "Oh, do you have a home studio?" And I was like, "No, no, I have a private studio. It's very different.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not tattooing on my kitchen counter."
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, okay, that's very different." So I think that there's like a very large spectrum of tattooers here, but I feel like a lot of them fall on like the higher end part of this spectrum. So
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense.
but the laws seem pretty relaxed here.
Yeah, and they're different, all over the world. It's been such an interesting conversation with different people, finding
Absolutely.
out how people get trained. I mean, I guess that's really what my biggest curiosity is how are you
And
getting trained in this
yeah.
world?
I mean, I'm
And
really grateful from coming from Portland, where I had what I feel like is the highest level of training. I mean, I know that some people would argue that, but then I would also say, well, your 2 or 5 year apprenticeship, like, how was that? And they were like, oh, well, I was a guinea pig for a while. And I was like, yeah, well, I mean, like I
yeah,
did bookwork and I did tracings and I did tattooing and I practiced on like fake skin and like I learned how to work with clients and I did all this marketing stuff in the background. And they were like, oh no, I didn't get any of that.
yeah, right. And I've
So
heard, a lot of people have talked about the fact that their apprenticeships really weren't that good, but some of them have had excellent ones, but then other ones,
yeah,
have had a struggle or just really didn't learn a lot and still had to go on and teach themselves so much, which I
yeah.
mean, I do. You agree with me in the fact that of course you're always learning, you're always growing, you're
Oh,
always trying to improve yourself no matter
it's
where
so
you're at.
important to remember that too, because I feel like there's a year where you like start to get a little bit comfortable in tattooing, where you're like, okay, cool, I'm not like so anxious.
Right.
I'm gonna throw up like every
Gotta
day.
go in the back for a minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you get level of comfortability, and then I think that like always checking myself to remember like don't ever be comfortable. I mean, I say that now, but this year has definitely pushed me like out of my comfort.
This year has pushed
I just
everybody.
feel comfortable right now.
That's nice. That's good. So, what's the most important thing that you would tell students of tattooing hoping to get into this field, like newbies and beginners?
Don't ever give up. Don't take no for an answer. I mean, respect when people say no means no, but
Yes.
but also like, get knocked down off that horse and get back up again and just brush it off and go, all right, got to try something different,
Yeah.
but remember, if something didn't work, maybe try something else, because you're not really going to get the result that you want if you keep trying the same thing over and over again, you know, expecting the same results. So you just got to like mix it up a bit, learn some new things, make some new friends and, make yourself vulnerable.
What would you have wanted to know when you first started? Like, I remember when I first started, I didn't go to a very good tattoo school. I'll just tell you that much. It was
Oh
pretty bad.
no.
It was pretty bad.
Oh no,
But that's what motivated me to do, do a whole different thing, because I
that's
knew I could do it
awesome.
so much better. But I spent so much time like trying to find information, reading, and just like, looking at other people's work or whatever. And it would have been so nice to just be like, here are the questions I want answered.
Oh my goodness.
Somebody help me.
I have too many questions. I'm the question queen. I don't know. I think that when I came into the industry, I would have wanted to know that there's other tattooers out there that are good people. And that's
Mhm.
why I'm eternally grateful that you've chosen to have me on this, because it really means a lot to me to be able to get that message out there,
Oh,
to
thank you.
tell other artists that are, aspiring tattooers or like newbies in the industry, like it's okay, and we're here, and there's a couple of good ones.
Yeah, there are a few.
And like
There's a
it,
few of us.
and you can be a good one too, and we can have like a little crew that we start.
Right, the
Like,
sisterhood.
yeah,
That's what it's
and
about, right?
it'll grow, we'll get bigger, one person at a time.
I was talking to a lady, I think in England, I want to say it was Lucy Pigeon, if I remember correctly, who's trying to start a sort of like a tattoo mentorship where
Oh, that's
people
awesome.
who are more experienced kind of take on a younger, woman who's getting into the industry. And she mentioned, and they're just kind of trialing it. They're just trying this idea. But what I thought was a great idea, I was like, yeah, because when you first start out and you're 18 or 20 and you're so vulnerable and you don't know what you're doing, it would be so great to know that it doesn't have to be some intimidating person you're almost scared to talk to, but someone who's
Absolutely.
like, hey, let's be supportive of each other, we're here to help. This
Absolutely.
situation you're going through is, you don't need to have the hazing and the bullying and whatever.
Oh, because the stories that I've heard from other female tattooers, oh, are the nightmares.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
too.
and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But yeah, that's amazing. And I try to do that, like I said, one person at a time, because that's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
level of managing it. Like
absolutely.
sometimes I'll get clients and they'll be like, hey, like my friend is like really, really interested in becoming a tattoo artist, or they really love your work, or they would, they'd love to like have the chance to talk to you. And I'm like, absolutely, anytime.
Very nice. Yeah.
I would love to, like even if it's like over Skype, or like a virtual virtual coffee date.
Sure,
Uh,
that's what we're doing a lot of these days, right?
yeah, I think it's really important to be able to like, respect your time, your energy, your boundaries, and your schedule, so that you're not overstretching yourself, but also like make yourself available, at some point to other people, because there was definitely somebody there for me,
Hmm.
and it's pay it back,
Yeah. And,
um,
I didn't have anybody. And I feel like that's also what motivated me so much to try to create something different for other people.
yeah,
Because it was such a
absolutely.
struggle in the beginning. And a few of the speakers I've talked to, they were like, oh, such a struggle in the beginning just to
Yeah.
get information.
You know what though? I hate to hear that, but I also think that it builds character. I
Well, it
really
did. I guess it motivated me to do something like this.
it really does. And maybe that's another bit of my advice is like it's all right to struggle for a little bit,
Yeah.
because you'll come out tougher at the other side of it.
Take everything and turn it in, lemons into lemonade, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at the silver lining out of literally everything, because I've been doing it for the past 6 months. I'm like, there's a silver lining to the pandemic. There's a silver lining.
There's gotta be. There's
But
gotta
there
be
is, there
something.
is. Like
Oh, of
I
course
had
there
this
is.
entire time to build my studio, and I like
Yeah.
learned a lot about like self-care, and like, I mean, there's tons of stuff that I've learned. I'm like really grateful for it. So
I feel like busting out and singing, always look on the bright side of life,
oh
because
my gosh,
that's
I
what you're
feel like
being
I have
paid.
to do that every day.
That's
Oh my God,
awesome.
I love
Well,
it.
so tell me a little bit about the trauma aware tattooing and how you got into that.
Well, I think that it started with the one-on-one client experience,
Hmm.
where I was like, I need to focus on like one person at a time, because each person has something that they've been through,
Hmm.
and I don't know what that is.
Right.
And I want to be gentle and kind to each person, not expecting that they've all had like, past trauma, but I mean, I don't think I've met a person who
Yeah, I was
hasn't.
gonna say who hasn't.
Yeah, like
We could
being
talk
kind
for an
to
hour about
people.
that too.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely spent like a good portion of the past year, learning about becoming more trauma aware, just in my spare time in my personal life. And it has like kind of slowly trickled into tattooing,
Hmm.
subconsciously, when I'm like meeting a client who I think that last year in Philadelphia comes in, and little did I know, she almost left as soon as she walked in because she was so afraid and anxious because of her past trauma. I happened
Mm.
to come out of the back room about 5 minutes early, and I just greeted her with this like soft, super sweet voice that I greet everybody with, like, hi, thanks so much for coming. Like, it's so nice to meet you. Like, we're gonna have a great day. Like, and she was like, I could see the stress dropping from her face.
Oh,
And
good.
it like absolutely moved me that I could like watch it just kind of trickle down her and like kind of fade away. And then later that day, because I spend so much time with each person because I make a day out of tattooing
Hmm.
everybody, she opens up to me, and it's definitely like a therapy session, I feel like, for both of us sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Um,
I get that too because I've felt that way about a lot of my clients too.
yeah. But I think that doing the one-on-one tattooing, it's almost like that every day, honestly. So I've like become more aware of that, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna be like art therapist, then there's a lot of things that I need to learn. So like I'm paying attention to people's body language. I am paying attention to people's tone. I'm like being really gentle with them, being kind to them, like on another level, asking them all of the questions and allowing them space to ask me questions, and also letting them know right off the bat, we're not going to put this on you permanently until you love it, because it's going on your body, not
Hmm.
mine.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and it goes all the way down to like asking them, is it okay if we remove this level of clothing to get to
Right.
the area
Yeah.
that we have to tattoo? It's asking permission, and then also providing alternatives for them. Like I have a lot of options, if maybe they forgot to bring like let's say I'm tattooing like a hip or something. Well, I have like options available for them. It's like a little tiny bathing suit that has like a little tie at the side,
Oh, yeah.
something
That's a
that's
good
there
idea.
so that they don't have to feel vulnerable.
Hmm.
But I think that also kind of comes with having the private space where they can be
Yeah.
exposed and not feel vulnerable.
That probably makes a huge difference for sure.
Huge.
I
Yeah.
better I better come see you. I better come get a
Aw.
tattoo from you.
Yes, come
It
on.
sounds amazing.
When they open the border.
Will I ever get through? I have
Oh
to
my
get a
goodness.
passport. Oh darn.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness. Yes.
um then so what made it so that you were going to offer, or you have been offering cover-ups and I don't know, like, do you do scar work and stretch mark work too?
I do. I do. And that started at the beginning of my career, where I had a girl that won a contest that I had put on, and she came into me the day of her tattoo, and she was like, I'm sorry, I don't know if you like this is a thing that you work with, but I have stretch marks. Is it possible to put this tattoo over them? And I was very honest with her. I said, I've never worked with that before, but I'd be more than happy to. And I have a lot of tattooers in my studio that would be more than happy to like assist and supervise if you're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with that. And she was. So we moved forward with it. And I was like, just let me know like the entire process. Like, let me know how it heals. Let me know like what it looks like in a month or two. And she was really, really communicative and sent me like lots of pictures, and it healed perfectly. And I was so
Yahoo.
stoked. Yeah. And then I think that like having put that out there, other people were like, oh, hey, well, like if you work with stretch marks, you work with scars. And I kind of did the same thing. And it also healed phenomenally. And I guess I just kind of took to it really well by nature. But also, like, in the back of my mind, I was like, this is something that's affected every single person that I love for as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, like, I mean, maybe it's like the hippie part of me. Like, maybe I'm like channeling this like extra love into these pieces to be
That's so
extra
cool.
mindful of like, the change and consistency in the skin, and like, being able to like take on this like really challenging
Mm-hmm.
work. But yeah, I was able to like change that into this beautiful project where I'm now I'm actually going to be promoting it over the next couple of weeks because I've been working on it for a while now. But and I have a lot of clients that I've been giving like free tattoo cover ups of scars, and I also do like just survivor victims like in general,
Mm-hmm.
of like abuse, assault, and violence.
How do you
I-
choose who to work with? I mean, how can you afford, or what do you do financially for that part?
well, I don't charge a thing, and
Yeah, that's why I'm
yeah, no,
asking.
it's absolutely free completely. I mean, I'm able to take on like at least one person per month.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll be doing is doing like a raffle.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I did some research and I have seen like how other people in the industry have approached it. And it looks like they'll open their books and then they'll get flooded with requests and they'll have to close them immediately. And I just don't personally like that level of like unobtainability.
Uh-huh.
So I really want everybody to feel like they have like a chance to get in like every month.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have time to take on more than one person per month, then I also have that as well.
Do you
Um,
have a special place where you show these particular things, or do you just include them in your Instagram?
I include them in my Instagram, but I also have them on my website. So the rubygore.com/survivor project.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So there's actually like, and I asked the girl that I worked with last year, because she had some pretty significant scars, and I asked her, is it okay if I use this as an example? And she said, I would love for you to use this as an example because I want other people to see like the magic that you've been able to work. And I
Oh,
was like, oh, I was like so touched. I was
yeah.
crying definitely.
Well,
But
that go ahead.
I have like a before picture. I got like fresh line work, healed line work, and then the final piece. And so people can kind of see what it looks like all throughout the process.
Yeah, very
Um,
cool.
so I'm going to be uploading more photos as well, so that people can see like kind of a variety of pieces that I've worked on.
Yeah,
Um,
nice.
but yeah, I'll be promoting it. I mean, it's there's like, I think October 12th is like Mental Health Awareness Day, and that was
Hmm.
kind of when I was planning on launching the project. So
Very cool. I'm
because
glad
I
you
kind of
told
have like a
everybody about that.
backlist of people that I've been working with like up
Hmm.
until now. So I was like, but I want to like reopen the project here. So yeah.
Cool. So just to finish up, let me ask you what are you most excited about, say, in the next couple of years?
Traveling again.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully, I'm getting itchy. It's the longest that I've stayed still in like 10 years.
And why is travel important to you?
Experience, getting out of my comfort zone,
Mm.
having bad experiences.
Has that helped you with your anxiety? Like,
Oh my
to
gosh,
be
yeah.
brave and get out
Uh,
there?
I can now fall asleep as the plane is taking off. I'm pro at traveling. But also like I think that it's funny because my first terrible experience was coming back to Portland after I moved away. I went to the Portland convention and it was literally like everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
Oh,
And I
yikes.
was crying at the end of it.
Mm.
It was the first time that I'd really traveled to tattoo.
Hmm.
And I said, I'm never doing this again. This is awful. Oh my gosh, I'm never doing another convention. I'm never traveling again. I don't know. I want to hide under a blanket. And then after like the dust settled, I said, you know what? You learned a lot of things from that. So maybe like chill a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good attitude.
Yeah, and it did it, and then I went and did the Puerto Rico convention later that year, and maybe I chilled a little too much, but it was also Puerto Rico, so yeah,
Oh,
but I think
goodness.
that, like, having that approach and then, like, learning from each experience, no matter how good or bad it is, has absolutely shaped the person that I am today.
Cool. I love that.
Thanks.
Yes. Nice. Good for the audience to know, to be able to travel and go to conventions and do all the things.
Yeah, no matter how uncomfortable it is, and, like,
Yes.
I come from my quiet, private studio where I have super chill music and I only tattoo one person and nobody else is in the room, to go into this total madness and chaos of a convention where there's, like, thousands of people and, like, loud,
Yeah.
obnoxious music that I hate, and it's like, "Ah,"
Yeah.
but, like, finding your space and your zone and, like, the reason that you're there, like, I think is really, really important. So I go to conventions to market and to
Hmm.
network, and I do a couple of small tattoos. Like, I know a lot of other people go to conventions to hustle, and I respect that so hard.
Hmm.
That's not my approach because I just can't. But
Yeah.
I found my happy zone there, and and what I get out of it is like so I can't put a dollar amount on how much it's worth to me.
Oh, nice. So, how you learn to get such clean lines in your tattoos? What's your magic?
Oh my goodness. Low key obsessive compulsive disorder. Oh, it's funny you asked that because when I was doing my schooling in Oregon for tattooing, um, I remember sitting in the classroom and there, we had quite a few students there. There was
Hmm.
maybe like 10 or 15 of them. And all of them were just like kind of a little bit, not everybody, but a lot of people were like kind of whining and complaining about like, oh, this is so boring. And I just look at them and I go, you know what? You better learn to love this because I can see the value in like doing your tracings right now because like it is going to save you later. Like I
Hmm.
could just see how far it was going to take me in tattooing. And it's funny because like before I graduated, a couple of the instructors were like, is it okay if we use your assignments as examples for the next time we
That's
print the
cool.
book? I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. Are they that good?" And
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, I would just do them over and over and over, and I refused
Nice.
to submit them until they were absolutely perfect."
Cool.
And my hand cramped like crazy.
Right, right. Yes,
Um,
yes, yeah.
but like
We
I
always
said,
we always
yeah,
tell our
like
students the same thing. We actually have a few assignments that are like, this is going to take you, 6 to 12 hours to trace,
yeah.
and so
And then if
yeah.
it's not perfect, do it again.
Because and your hands will cramp because they do when you first start tattooing as well.
They really do. It took a long time for me to work up my stamina, and then even to rework up my stamina after the pandemic, because I was like,
Mm.
"Oh my gosh, what if I forgot how to tattoo?" Like,
Right.
but,
So you
oh,
think
you think
patience,
patience,
practice?
absolutely. You know, I think that one of the most valuable things that I learned outside of schooling was from an artist that I met also in Oregon that said, you know what, don't worry how long it takes you, and if you're
Mm,
worried about like working on an hourly rate, then don't charge the person extra and let them know that and explain to them how crucial it is to have perfect line work and and then the rest will kind of come. So I think that like because I kind of always have had a little bit of anxiety just as day-to-day activities. I
mhm.
think that that advice really like resonated with me. But also I think that like having a father that's a photographer has kind of taught me how to like hold a camera steady, like using my surroundings. So like having a really steady base for where your hand is, Staying really relaxed, not too much caffeine before you do line work.
Yes.
I'd rather be sleepy than overly caffeinated.
Yes.
Really relaxing music is so important. But yeah, never rush it. And, and I think that like even another thing that I think I figured out more so recently is like sometimes if you're taking a long time to get your line work done because you're doing it so perfectly because you want it right the first time, sometimes people are like, oh, it's, like it's hurting and like it's kind of bothering them. A trick that I learned was, to take a really thin liner, and to just sketch those lines in. And if you got to put a little bit of numbing ointment on them and come back to them,
Hmm.
to make them perfect, after like letting them sit for a couple minutes, it's absolutely worth it. Like rather than having to like wrestle them while they're wiggling.
So true.
So that I think really helped a lot. So.
So what did you mean about a thin liner and do what with a thin liner? I didn't quite catch what you meant.
Oh, well, I use a lot of like tight three liners
Hmm.
to do my dot work with. So I've always got one out on my station.
Hmm.
So if I'm like I was tattooing one of my friends a couple of weeks ago, and it was like on the ribs, and she was like, "Oh, this is really killing." Like it's like
Mm.
getting a little tough, and and I want the lines to be perfect. So, and she just couldn't sit still for the last, like, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. So I pulled out the three liner, and I just like really quickly, like almost like gray wash sketched those lines in. So I
Hmm.
have the stencil down.
Yeah.
And then I was able to like put a little bit of numbing ointment on her. I usually use Zensa
Hmm.
numbing ointment. That stuff's really great. And it's not a vasoconstrictor, so it doesn't like mess with the texture of the skin.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was able to just like put a little bit of plastic wrap on her for a couple minutes and come back to it, and she's like, "Oh, that's great! I can't even feel it." And I was able to
Oh,
get those
good.
lines in.
Yeah. Yeah, what you're describing what you do is what I kind of call mapping it in, and I'll use that technique too, where it's like you don't even worry about just kind of sketching it in if you need to, if you're trying to hurry or you're losing the stencil or
Mhm.
something, or you're doing a big piece that you're just getting the outline done on or something. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I do that same kind of thing too.
Yeah, it was like one of
Cool.
the best things that saved my line work, especially like if I'm getting tired, I want to make sure that I'm able to take a break, my client's able to take a break,
Yeah.
and then we're not worrying about losing the stencil, or if they're struggling or if they're just done, and that kind of goes back to being a trauma aware tattooer. If they're like just experiencing a lot of pain and discomfort, you can just like map those lines in really quickly and then be like, you know what, it's okay, we can call it a
Yeah,
day.
that's good. I love that because then
Yeah.
you're not going to be worried like, how do I place a half a stencil back on
Oh
a
my gosh,
t-shirt?
because I did it once and I don't ever want to do it again.
Exactly. Me too. And it was this crazy thing a long time ago that was plaid. And I was like, no,
Oh my
lost half the
goodness,
stencil and oh yeah. Anyway, nightmare.
that sounds awful.
It was awful. So what's your must-have ink palette? I mean, what does that include?
Oh, yeah, well, because I do a lot of black work, like predominantly black work. I had been using dynamic for a long time,
Hmm.
and then at the Philly convention last year, so I'm sponsored by Second Skin, so I usually do a booth with them every
Hmm.
year. And we were at the booth and we were actually taking a break, and Eric, he's such a doll. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go introduce you to some other people in the industry." And I said, "That would be great." So he walks me over to Allegory, and he said, "These guys are wonderful. You should definitely chat with them." And they just gave me a free bottle
Nice.
of black ink, and I said, "Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it." And I kind of sat on it for a little bit because I hesitated with changing something that I felt like was a very consistent thing in my work. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, like changing blacks.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like that's stressful." And then, I just took a dive. I was also not 100% sure at the time that if they were vegan, but I was able to verify that they are,
Hmm.
because I like to provide all vegan supplies while I'm tattooing and for aftercare.
Hmm.
Uh, and And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try. And I've never looked back. Like
Oh,
I'm not
wow, really?
wasteful. Oh my gosh, I'm not wasteful. So I still have my dynamic, but I'm like, I can't. Like I can't even look at it. It pales in comparison to Allegory. They're absolutely a must. Like I don't know what they've done with their ink, but there's something very special about it, and I love it. And my tattoos are healing faster,
Huh.
and I'm able to like get those perfect dots, like, and like, like the skin is just like taking the ink perfectly every time, and I love
Are
it.
you
So
mainly talking black though, or do they have other colors too?
you know what, that's a really good question that I don't
Aha!
know the answer to.
All right, I'll wait for you to figure that out and you let me
Yeah,
know.
baby steps, right?
Right, a little at a time. I love
Yeah.
it.
But
So,
color-wise, I've got like just a couple of like antique colors that I really love. Like the Liz Cook Eternal series is definitely one of my favorites. Yeah, all eternal. I just actually Annalie introduced me to Radiant, which I've just placed an order for.
mm,
And she seems to really love them, but she said the golds and the golden oranges are just to die for. So I'm excited to try those out.
ooh, fun. Cool. I
Yeah.
like getting new tips for, the things that I can try too.
No.
What's your biggest pet peeve when dealing with clients?
Oh, that's a good one. I have to say I feel really lucky, like really lucky that my clients are so trusting, and they're so communicative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that like maybe if they like are not necessarily respecting my needs, as like, hey, I'm tired, like my body's kind of
Mm-hmm.
aching,
Kind of
like if
over.
I yeah. Because I think there's a lot of instant gratification that people want more so, in this day and age. And I completely understand. But I have to explain to them, you know what, I get it, and I would love to finish your tattoo today.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do, I'm not going to be giving you 100%,
Right.
and that's just not how I work.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. For
So
years and years and years, I was so resistant to doing more than one session if I could do it in one. And then finally, I don't know, someone probably told me this too. It might have been, I might have heard it from Guy Aitchison or somebody, but that two passes is absolutely fine and necessary a lot of times too on the stuff,
absolutely,
just letting it go and building up the color
yeah.
and building up the lines, seeing how it heals. So I've been telling my people for the last like 2 years, I'd really love it if you'd let me take a second pass on that almost
Yeah.
every time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that about, I don't know, not very long into my career, I decided to do like forever free touch-ups. So I insist that people let me see their tattoos healed, after a certain amount of time. And I encourage them to come back, and I was like,
Nice. Yeah.
I want you to come back, and I want it to look perfect no matter what, always. And I think that that's going to help people get them back in the chair
Yeah.
for a
Motivation.
second throw. Yeah. But also I think that like preemptively what I'm doing, the changes that I've made like on my website, and then in the email that I send out to people for their appointment reminders, I let them know all of this stuff in advance.
Yeah.
I'm like, please, like, I'm very respectful of your body, your time. I just ask that you do the same to me. So, but because I put that out there, people are very responsive to it, and I
That's cool.
appreciate
I
it.
like that you did that, that you thought of that as helping them in advance. Email and technology and having, all of that is such a great assistance to all of this process of
It really
dealing
is,
with
yeah, and I'm
clients.
just
Yeah.
looking for automation, and I've been automating a couple of things here and there, and it's really great. I'm still trying to figure out, like, how to automate everything if I could, but I just
I've done that on so many things too. Okay, I'm just going to ask you one more question
Okay,
and then we
perfect.
can wrap up. If you could turn back time and talk with your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
Oh, I would say, "You know what, kid, you're gonna be alright." You're gonna love what you do. You'll find your passion. You'll find your place in the world, and you're gonna make waves. Just keep at it, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Awesome.
And if they do, accept it as a challenge.
Good. Brilliant. Super cool.
Yeah.
So now that we're wrapping up, you have a unusual free gift for our listeners. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Is it unusual? I'm so excited.
Yeah. I mean, it's different than what anyone else is giving. So
Oh,
yeah.
good. Oh, I'm so glad. Well, I realized that one of the most crucial tools to me this past year has been having a Skillshare account. And for those that don't know what Skillshare is, it's basically like an online learning system.
Hmm.
And I think that it's geared mostly towards creatives. Anything from learning animation, creative writing, film and video, fine art, design, illustration, photography. And then it also has like the business side of things, leadership and management, marketing, and then my very favorite, productivity. So I learned a lot about how to be mindful of like my time, so that I can do all these other cool projects and watch all these other cool videos. So I really think that it has like it's a full house of like all sorts of like videos by some of the leading instructors in each industry.
Hmm.
So for my gift, I am giving away a 1 year premium membership to Skillshare.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been checking it out a little bit myself too, and I think it's amazing. So you, for the listeners, if you just look up on the event page next to Ruby's headshot, we'll have the link right there for you to enter her little contest to win that. And then also all of her links too, so you can follow her if you'd like to, and you should, because she's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate your time, Ruby. I know you're really
Aw,
busy, and I just loved our conversation.
me too. Me too. I'm so excited. And thank you so much for having me, Shelly. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
To our listeners, your next interview will be delivered to your inbox. And don't forget, you have access for a full 7 days after each interview is released to listen. I look forward to joining you in our next session. Until then, be feisty, stay kind, and get creative.